What's up, Nerfherders? Welcome back to the show. It
What's
is
up?
time yet again for me to rip the asshole out of a Marvel film, amongst other things.
Finally, uh,
Yeah, finally.
it's kind of a belated. I put belated review in the title because it's kind of been
You
a
know,
minute. But
scheduling concerns, and like whenever I go to the theater, like I ain't going to the theater by myself. Like I'm gonna bring my wife with me, so
uh,
uh, I gotta work around two schedules, and we had some parents visit during the weekend that Thor was coming out, and so it was a bit of a surprise. So kind of threw off all of my plans.
yeah, well,
So it
it
would have
happens.
been on time.
I mean, it's not that. I'm just giving you shit, really, because this was only its second weekend out, right? So I guess it
Yeah,
hasn't. It
yeah, it wasn't
feels
that
like
bad.
it came out so long ago, but it really hasn't been out
I mean, I
that
saw it.
long.
I saw it exactly a week after its early premiere had opened up, so I really wasn't that far behind. But we got some shit to talk. Uh, I got some praise, but mostly shit to talk. And we've got some other stuff. But before all that, Josh, how are you doing today?
I am.
Fuzzy?
Uh, am I fuzzy? This thing. I thought like, oh shit, is my
No, no, your camera's
connection
fine.
okay. I'm fine, man. I'm fine. Long weekend, not in a good way. Just kind of like it was a long weekend. So, but I'm doing good. I'm as I was telling you before we went live, I'm growing. For people getting concerned, I'm growing this out. I got a wedding here at the end of the month out in Colorado, and my cousin's out there. She's a hairstylist, so she's going. I'm trying to maximize the canvas so that she can clean me up, head and chin and everything. And so,
I mean,
yeah,
I
but
thought that
it's
you were just prepping for some Sasquatch sightings while you were up
no,
there. You just
man.
wanted
This
to
is
you just wanted to
just
stir up some shit.
in any other and really it's just laziness. But now knowing that there's at least three other people there that would appreciate me with a full beard, I'm like, all right. But I want to take it off. It's the middle of the summer. It's been warm. I want this to be gone, but
I mean, you've had it just long enough to where it's gonna be weird for me the next show that we have, because you're not gonna tell me either. Like you're gonna just be like, hey, you want to do a show? I'll be like, yeah, of course I do.
yeah,
And then not tell me that you shaved. I'm gonna show up and it's
it'll
gonna
be
be
the
you like
next
10 years
time.
younger. So
Well, it won't be the next time because we'll probably record next week post
probably,
San
yeah.
Diego Comic Con. But after that, yeah, it'll probably be after that. So, well, we're gonna talk about Thor because you finally saw Thor, but
Mhm.
that's gonna be the primary topic. We got a couple other topics to talk about. Well, I guess I didn't ask you. How are you doing? How was your weekend?
I mean, I'm good. I've been working out a lot,
Good deal.
which has actually created kind of like a weird scheduling conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't like skip a day. Like I'm doing a workout every day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I Part of my biggest problem has been like, you know what? I'm gonna do a workout. I'm gonna do a workout. I'm gonna put a plan together and I'm gonna execute it. And in like 6 months' time, I'm gonna like have noticeable progress. Which always sounds like a super logical layout. Like 6 months is a pretty long time, but hopefully, like 6 months of like working out, you would notice a difference by then. I would hope anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it would fall short for me every time because my workout plan was always so specific. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like I would plan something out specific for each day, and then as soon as the slightest inconvenience came in, it would just throw it all into haywire. Which anybody who's been watching our show for a long time knows that my schedule is just fucked all the time.
Sure.
Completely unpredictable. It makes things really difficult, especially for making our show sometimes. But it's happened. So I gave myself like a really simple goal, and it's like and it's daily,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as I don't skip a single time doing that, it works out great. And then I've coupled that with a diet that makes me a little cranky sometimes. And like my most recent break in the diet was actually to see Thor. So like I
Mm-hmm.
was prepped for a really really big thing. But we'll get more into that when we actually talk about the movie. So yeah, I have been hectic. I've been getting endorphins every day, which has been pretty awesome. So I've been in a good mood until that Thursday. Uh, and now I get to do a Nerfherders cast. Like
Yeah.
it's always a good day when we get to do a Nerfherder show. So I'm stoked.
and you'll get to cathartically release all the rage inside of you
Oh
when we
God,
talk
man,
about
I
Thor.
gotta tell you, like, I mean, like,
Just
we're pretty much
foreshadowing how he feels about this,
we're
folks,
giving
because we haven't
everybody a
figured
lot of
that
hints,
out.
a lot of hints for how this is gonna go.
But again, we're going to put that off here for a second. I want to talk about, we got some things up top, so I want to just jump into it. So one of the things that's came out in the news lately, and this is going to segue into something else, and you might have heard of this, is that Nintendo has acquired an animation studio. They bought this animation studio called Dynamo Pictures, and their
Did hear
plans
something about that.
their plans are to release I think they called it Nintendo Films or Nintendo Pictures, and have their own, I mean, like have their own Pixar basically for Nintendo properties. Super Mario Brothers will kind of kick that off, or not Super Mario Brothers, the Super Mario film that Chris Pratt's going to be in will kind of kick that off. Detective Pikachu will be retroactively added into that lineup. But then, yeah, they plan to make movies, animation films based on their content under the banner of Nintendo Films. So that's pretty. It's pretty. I mean, I'm surprised it took them this long to do it, honestly. But what do you think about that news from Nintendo?
Honestly, so if it had been any other uh console brand, however you want to call, like, obviously you've got the big three. You've got Sony, you've got Microsoft or Xbox, and you got Nintendo. If it had been Xbox or Sony who had been talking about doing stuff specifically around their video games, that have been like, okay, well, you're kind of already been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like, so when you pitched me the idea of video game content
Mm-hmm.
before we had our show today, I was like racking my brain. I was like, okay, here we go, because I had heard about this Mario film, and I remember Nintendo talking about a film studio, uh, but I'm kind of underwhelmed, I guess, is sort of how I feel about it. Because the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Nintendo making a movie is it's not going to be targeted towards me. It's going to be targeted to a much younger audience. Um, like with, well, if they do it right, it's going to feel like Pixar, where it's got
Mm-hmm.
a heavy amount of it is catered towards children with enough like enough enjoyment capable for adults to go in there and have a good time and not be like, oh well, it was for the kids. Like, no, it was like we enjoyed watching this. That's best case scenario for me. But at the same time, this news isn't really that shocking. Nintendo themselves, I mean, they've been running off of like the same core of properties for decades now. I mean, you've got, I mean, just the photo that I pulled up from this, the first page that I looked at when I looked at the news story, and it's just got the core group. It's got Donkey Kong, it's got Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Bowser, Waluigi, Boo the Ghost, like Wario's in there. Like, I mean, that franchise has been keeping them going for who knows how long. I'm a little upset that Zelda isn't in here, but that'd be some interesting content. Like, I'd like to see some stuff in Hyrule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Silence my phone now. I would be intrigued to see what's going on. Like, when I heard that Chris Pratt was going to be playing Mario, which I think is which I mean, that didn't hit me right off the bat. But then I think about his voice acting in like the Lego Movie, and just kind of like the range that he has. I feel like he could probably pull that voice off. But the voice actor for Mario is still alive, so it's like, why wouldn't you just?
Oh, dude,
Like,
I bet you hard money that like the intro is gonna be Chris Pratt's like take on that, and then he's gonna clear his throat and be like, "Hey, when I'm off camera, I sound like this," and it's not going to be the
oh no,
typical.
it's not gonna
I
hit
would bet
well.
you hard money that's what's gonna happen.
Oh,
So
that won't hit
be
well.
prepared. Be prepared.
I
That
don't know.
this is my on camera voice, and then this is Chris Pratt's voice as Mario when I'm off camera. So just be prepared. I can see that happening.
I mean, so I don't know if you're familiar with the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker,
Mm-hmm.
but that seems like that would be really well catered towards like a show. But Link doesn't talk, So at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, what would they do with that?
Yeah.
Most of these characters are stuck to like a select few lines, and these characters don't speak. And so you're going to be jumping into new territory with any sort of like dialogue inclusive piece of content that they're making.
Mhm.
So in one way, yeah, they've got kind of a blank canvas, but in another, they're going to be dealing with decades of expectations behind them.
Sure.
And that kind of falls into what every video game, movie, or TV show that somebody's going to make does. It's like somebody has an idea of what they want to do with all this stuff already.
Yeah.
How are you going to not necessarily pander, but how are you going to make them happy without pissing? How are you going to make them happy by doing something original without pissing them off by fucking up what they already know? So,
well, I mean, it also depends on how big they go with it. Are they trying to
right.
do like, are they trying to do Pixar level films? Are they trying to do just films to, you know, put it out there, direct to video stuff, or on their own platform stuff? But, you know, I'm not going to lie. I mean, on the surface level, I would be interested in a Zelda movie. I would
Mhm.
be interested in a Star Fox. I'd be interested in anything Star Fox. You know, I'd be
Star Fox would
interested
be cool, actually.
in
Yeah,
a
that'd
in
be
a
sweet.
Metroid Prime movie. You know, I think there's a lot of IPs under their name. I think they can do fun things with it. I think they could do like, you know, maybe they do some origin films for a couple of these characters, and then, you know, maybe they structure it like the MCU where it leads to you know, a Super Smash Brothers event, or
Maybe you would have it.
they they do their take on what is Disney's thing, Kingdom of Hearts, where they just throw a bunch of these characters into this massive story and they do something like that that they build up to. I mean, they could make this big, they could make this simple, but I think it's smart that they're not starting from scratch. They're buying a studio that have already been involved in video game adaptations, and animation adaptations, and then taking that from there. Because I believe I saw that this company, yeah, so this company, they were part of Ghost in the Shell, Resident Evil franchises. Those have been like straight to DVD stuff, but their movies have rung pretty well with the people that have watched it. So the animated stuff. So I think not starting from scratch could be a good thing. This is coming from Collider, but yeah, I'm intrigued by it to say the least. So, but I wanted to talking about that. I know, what's up, Jeff? I know that you know, it's very much in the future, but it did get me thinking. You know, the age old question of, and we've talked about this in length when we talked about God of War news and stuff like that. But I wanted to know, you know, looking back in hindsight, I think we can agree that the majority of films based on video games have not done well. Look how many there are. These are live action films. And then, you know, then we got upcoming ones. Then we got animated films. Then we got Japanese films. Then we got animated films. There is a plethora of films based on video games. I want to know, going back and with hindsight, is there anyone that, you know, you consider to be your favorite?
I mean, I'm looking at the same list that you are, and
You got to pick one. You can only pick one.
how though? Like,
I mean, I got mine, and I did a little bit of thinking on it this afternoon after I told you, but that's why I gave you a heads up. So,
they're making a Borderlands movie. Come on. I mean, I guess they could. It's wild. It's wild enough.
oh yeah, they've been
Portal,
talking about that.
an upcoming Portal film. Sonic 3. I'm not surprised about that at all. They've done okay. I haven't seen the second one yet, but
Mm-hmm. But of the ones we've already gotten, I mean, you can go all the way back to Super Mario Brothers in '93, or Wing Commander in '99, or
well,
original Mortal Kombat. What? There's got to be one that you can look back fairly fondly of, and if you had to watch it today, you would be intrigued to watch it.
well, I can't remember which one it is because there were a couple. Which Lara Croft had Daniel Craig in it?
The
Was that
first
the
one.
first one? That one's good for a laugh. Like that one's a legitimate movie that I could go back and watch and just like laugh at how bullshit it is because they did They did bad on that one. But a lot of that is just staring at Angelina Jolie.
God damn you, because that's literally mine.
Okay.
The first Tomb Raider. Look, nobody liked that movie critics wise.
No.
It wasn't at all true to the game, but for the most part, from fan base, it was generally well received. Like people wanted a sequel. People liked Angelina Jolie in the character as the character. You know,
I mean, 274 million at the box office.
I think if most people look back on this film, they probably don't remember much about it. But if they were to look back, most people would look back fondly on this film. I sure do. I know it's not that great of a film. It didn't make sense when it came out. Certainly doesn't make sense now. But I think she nailed it. I think most people are like, who played Lara Croft the best? It's her. Even though like a lot of people didn't think she could pull it off initially. And padded bra aside, I thought she was fantastic. Like that was the thing apparently that she had to like come out and say, yes, it's a padded bra for those people worrying about whether or not I could fill the role. And
they could have given her pyramid polygon tits.
I know. That I guess that would have been more accurate, but she was great. I liked it. Daniel Craig with his last minute American accent, pre-Bond.
So bad.
It was so bad, but to be fair, he was told last minute. They switched it like right before filming. Oh, hey, we want your character to be American. So that was something he was not prepared for, especially since she's talking in a British accent. So why can't he talk in a British accent? You know?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Weird. It's weird. And she's the American talking in a British accent. He's the British guy talking in an American accent.
And the wire work, like all the wire work, all of like the CGI, the horrible CGI that they did.
I mean, it came out in 2001, so you know,
it could have been so much worse. It could have been so much worse.
Yeah, but this is, you know, it made money. It made toys. It was, you know, it was her fighting a robot at times. Hearing about the stuff behind the scenes, the scripts they were going to go with, it was so much more outlandish than it turned out to be. I appreciated it. I really liked this movie. I dug it. The next one gets even more mystical and crazy and not great. But I loved this movie when it came out. And I think most people did as well that weren't movie critics. Most people that were like, you know, I just want a good Tomb Raider movie, liked her portrayal as Tomb Raider. So I think this is probably one of the rare things that looking back, most people would agree that this wasn't as bad as some of the other adaptions over the years.
Right. I remember seeing Blood Rain because that one was on the list, and I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't even thought about that one beforehand. Blood Rain was not a good game. It wasn't even a good game.
No.
And then the movie came out, and then I'm like, this is the closest thing that I think I've seen where somebody took a camera to their friend's LARPing group, and everyone wrote their own character's background story.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of them I remember Michelle Rodriguez's line where she said, I think her said that her parents were dead and she was trained in battle, and they were doing like stupid moves to try and like show off how good they were with it. And then there was the emo guy that Blood Rain ends up boning, who's talking about how my parents were both killed by the guy who's my leader now. I'm so like every emo kid showed up for this live action role play thing, and somebody decided to bring a camera along with them. And then they found some actress who didn't mind getting topless in multiple scenes, and that was what made their movie for them. It was an emo vampire kid thing prior to Twilight, and it was just we could go on and on about how garbage all these fucking video game movies are, like, because like I have yet to see a video game movie where I'm like, I have like anything above like a C. like a C minus.
Do you know that there are multiple sequels to Blood Rain?
Yeah, they're all crap.
They certainly look like it. There's a where was the other one?
I haven't seen any of them, but I guarantee they're all crap.
They don't look great. Let's see. Go back. There was Blood Rain 2, Deliverance, Heart-Stopping Adventure.
Is it the same shit?
Looks like it. And then
Looks
Blood
like
Rain, The Third Reich. Only the dead survive.
Oh my god.
It looks so bad. I don't think I even saw the first one. I know what this is. I've never played the game. I've seen the cover, never played it. So
I remember seeing
the
I remember seeing the 90s Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
And always like the thing that comes to mind is that I wasn't supposed to be watching it when I was that age. I wasn't supposed to play the game when I was that age, because like in 95 I would have been like 6 years old. And I think that was when the Wikipedia page said that it came out. And I remember around that era being like, oh, I shouldn't be watching this, but it would show up on cable TV like a year or so after that or something like that. However long it took for like I remember being really young and I was still in like the house that I lived in until I was about 6. And so that one sticks out in my mind. The Mario Brothers movie was like I watched that as God, I would have been like 19 or something like that because I was living in the shit. But I remember watching that one and thinking, why the fuck I liked this when I was a kid. Like it was horrible, man. That one was terrible.
You want to talk about terrible? This movie right here. I don't know if you ever saw it, but everybody was like, "Yes, we're finally getting Max Payne." And then it turns out it was so bad. There was like angel demons that were either real or just things he was seeing because of the drugs. It was so weird. That was a failure of a film, and everybody was like, why did you go in this direction for one of the more simpler shoot 'em up games?
I didn't play any of the Max Payne games, which I don't really regret, because they were back in that era. They were back in the PS2 era was a golden age of video games, but man, was there some crap that came out too.
Oh, for sure.
And
there's a lot of horrible stuff in here. House of the Dead was probably one of the more successful of the horror ones that were kind of based off something.
I mean, a lot of people go to a shitty horror film just for like the cheap horror tropes.
Yeah.
But that's also not my genre, so I wouldn't jump in there. Wasn't that one the one that was based on like the arcade deck machine?
Warcraft made a lot of money. Detective Pikachu made a lot of money. Both of those, the sequels are up in the air. Rampage made a lot of money, but I don't think anybody really cared for that film.
Rampage wasn't great. Rampage wasn't even that great of a game, but I have nostalgia around it. But it was really repetitive.
I remember this movie being such a disappointment to people, considering how much they loved the games. Let's see here. This movie, right?
Assassin's Creed?
No. Well, that movie too. But this one was a
letdown.
It could have been more egregious right here. It was Prince of Persia.
Yeah, that one was...
with Jake Gyllenhaal as the lead. Oh my god! I mean, I love the guy, but perhaps not the best person for the lead.
It wasn't as bad as it could have been. Like they did.
I remember loving the game though. The game was cool.
Yeah, the game was great.
But
they kind of steered up. Honestly, the best video game based IP that I've seen out of anything has been Arcane.
Sure.
Arcane did an incredible job with what they did, but that's a TV show. We're in that era, but like that's the first time. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. Like that was the first time where it was a piece of media that was based on a video game that came out, and they crushed it. They did an amazing job with that. And so my hopes were up high when Halo came out, and then we started watching that, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of underwhelming. and it was like, I mean, we went through the whole thing. Again, on that one though, I feel like that one kind of like you didn't find the right balance. Arcane was like, okay, we're going to take this video game and we're going to build our show in that universe. We're going to introduce some of the characters, not nearly all of them, not even close to all of them. We're going to find the characters that have the most intrigue in the story. There's not a main character in that. So, I mean, it was pretty easy to jump into this. It was probably like the perfect genre to jump into for something like this. And then we're going to build something that is loosely based on what fans of the game actually know is their character histories already. And then we're just gonna do some excellent fucking writing around it. And then
that
Halo,
was the key thing, was the writing that made
the
that
writing
show.
was so good in that show.
Insane.
The writing, the dialogue, the voice act, like I can't come up with really anything that show did not do well.
Yeah,
they knocked it out of the park. And and honestly, if there was stuff that I would pick on, it would be a nitpick, and it'd be a hard nitpick. I wouldn't want to do it because like that show came out so well, and I was late to the party on that one. Like I wasn't even super amped for it because it was like another video game based property, but thankfully you watched it and like knew nothing about League of Legends beforehand. You're just like, this just looks like a good show. And yeah, thankfully that panned out the way that it did. And then Halo set like this precedent that it was going to be this crazy good thing. And then the first episode, they did the first person view. I was like, well, this isn't going to be that great.
No.
Then again, in the first episode, they took Master Chief's helmet off. We're like, nope, that was a mistake. Can't do that. And then just snowballed from there.
I think and we'll move on from this, but I think Nintendo clearly has a legacy just from this page alone. I think they have the building blocks. When I think of this deal and the future of this deal, I think of the Lego movie and how fantastic that was. Now, they tried to build a universe off of that didn't really work, but the first Lego movie really did, and the Lego Batman movie did fairly well. So I think if they kind of maybe took that approach, got some good writing, there's so many things that they can tap into. They could do a team up movie that's a racing movie, that's kind of a play off the Cars films. They could do a team up movie that's all about Luigi's Haunted Mansion, and do a fun movie based in that world. There's so many things that they can do with these characters that I think they could make it work.
I think where Nintendo would thrive super well, because the Pokemon movies didn't do well either. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought they were awesome, but they're crap.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even get more than halfway through the first Pokemon movie on my most recent rewatch, and that was like 5-6 years ago or something like that. I don't remember. I think that the direction that they should take is shorts. Like I'm talking 15 minutes at the most. Like jump into cartoons, and because first of all, like I mean, unfortunately, because it's part of my job, I've had to watch Cartoon Network a few times just for like channel monitoring and shit like that for the engineering side of things. There is some real bullshit on Cartoon Network and all that stuff. Now, it was like the stuff that we remember from being kids. They've gotten far and away from that. Like it would be really nice for them to bring for like some like proper content to come out, because now like the cartoons that you see now are just loud and boisterous and ridiculous and annoying. Actually, like it was hard to listen to, and I was like, I really hope that the cartoons that I watched were not this is annoying to my parents, because that might explain a little bit of the craziness that I would have ensued onto them. Nintendo's got, like, because they've got such a big catalog, I feel like a series of like shorts that they just really like. They won't do it. Like they're gonna do more grandeur. They might even have their own streaming service for all we know. But I feel like if they were just throwing shorts up onto YouTube, like they could do great, because there's a huge demand from video gamers, just like especially from like Blizzard is one of them. Blizzard's cutscenes. Some of the cutscenes that they have put together just as trailers for their games. Like look at any of the Overwatch cinematic trailers or the Warcraft, StarCraft cinematic trailers. My God, can they put together some really good content, some really intriguing stuff. The Old Republic, Star Wars, the Old Republic, the MMO has had some cutscenes that are absolutely incredible. And it's like, hey, like I could see what you guys could do with something like this. Like, it was very similar to when the Beowulf movie came out that was fully animated.
Yeah.
And they had everybody in mocap suits. It was like the technology there is gone to where if you wanted to do something animated, yes, there's going to be more time in between these properties because that is all VFX. You're going to have a lot more work that you have to do in post for stuff like that. But man, has there been a huge demand for stuff like that. And we would watch it. We would eat it the fuck up. And so if Nintendo works, like I'm actually I have a lot of hope for Nintendo, because if it works out for Nintendo, it would be really cool to see other game properties be like, hey, we're going to jump on that bandwagon too. And we're going to give you guys this. Nintendo, I think, is the best temperature checker for that kind of content, because Nintendo has never been like the AAA title video game property, except for a few pieces. They have been the most consistently good company to like I buy their console every single time. I've owned every single one of them. Like, but like never has there been something where I've been like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what the story is on this. It's been more like, oh, I wonder what they do now.
Right.
Whereas with like, who knows where they could go if they decided to do some animated properties, and then like it's a new story with their characters every single time. They literally don't have a canon that they have to stick to for some of them.
Right.
But for some of them, they do. They have certain expectations that the characters have to meet, and it's like, okay, well, could go wrong, could go well, but I think they're the best first company to go for it as far as having just their own instead of a third party handling their characters and their properties. I think Nintendo's probably the best one to start it. But at the same time, I'm going to remain unoptimistic, because video game properties, you never know. Like video game movies, video game shows.
You're right.
The odds are against them.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Well, moving on, before we get to our main topic, we had a couple anniversaries this week. One is today, but the first one I want to talk about, was yesterday, 35 years ago. Yesterday, Robocop came out, the very first Robocop. And this is a clipping from the newspaper back then. I love this film. I look back on this film fondly. I can't remember the age I was when I first saw it, but I love this film. This is a Paul Verhoeven film, which means it was packed to the brim with satire that, just like every other one of his films, Starship Troopers, whatever, half of the audience is going to understand that it's satire and half of the audience is going to totally praise the film for the wrong things. But this film was so over the top violence, so critical of the system, so is it prophetic of the future. It's a great film. It was a great film, and I love this film. What are your thoughts on RoboCop?
And then the remake came in and fucked it up.
You know what? I'd watch the remake over some of the sequels. I'll tell you that. I appreciated the remake. Fair. I appreciated parts of the remake for what they tried to do, but the original is classic.
Well, RoboCop was another one that I wasn't allowed to watch, and so that one was another one where I was like, okay, holy crap, what I'm getting away with watching RoboCop when I was a young teen.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it in a long time. Like it has been a while since I've seen the original RoboCop. Oddly enough, one of those shitty sequels, I can't remember which one. I want to say that it was the second one. Where they're trying to sell like the super two-legged droid, and they put Kane's body into it, and it's fueled by that drug that he uses. I think that's the
second one. Yeah, because the third one was all like nuke him, and he gets a jetpack and everything, and yeah,
a horrible movie.
Third one was even worse.
Yeah, I don't think the third one doesn't ring any bells to me at all, but
it's bad.
Like I just remember the little puke kid from the second one now, who was like who's trying to be a crime lord at his age, and just like, what are you trying to appeal to? Like what? Yeah.
That was the thing. That was the thing, because RoboCop came out in the era where R-rated films had toys for kids. I mean, You know, it was part of the best era to grow up and be a kid in, because every film, it didn't matter if it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or Robocop, or Aliens, or
Prince of
anything.
Thieves was rated R.
It wasn't, but it wasn't a kids film, but they had plenty of toys for kids.
Oh,
Predator,
sure.
Aliens, all these films, especially Robocop, had so much toys for kids, even though there were films that were not made for kids. You don't see that anymore. You don't see R-rated films coming out today with toys for kids. So I can understand how they would be like, in the sequel, we need a kid. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, but we need to inject children into this franchise so that when they eventually watch it, they can be like, yes, buy me more toys.
Yeah, it was a terrible move. But yeah, like I have more recollection of that one than I do the first one, unfortunately, because the second one is the one that keeps on showing up on the shitty cable channels that I have to watch sometimes.
Oh, that's sad. That's so sad.
And thankfully, most of the time there's an issue. So it's either so the channel's either tiling or the audio's cutting out, so I don't have to listen to it or something like that. But yeah, I remember watching the original RoboCop like I was getting away with something, because like it was R-rated. I wasn't supposed to be watching it. I think I was like 12 at the time or something like that. And yeah, just oh man, it's nostalgia, man. Like we're taking me down like memory lane right now.
I want to play well, first of all, I have the original RoboCop Marvel comics bound and hardcover in a comic book that I created. I love the comics. There was so much that came out of that I want to play. I want to pull up like the RoboCop trailer or just highlight reel or something. Because there was so much about the show that was terrible. I mean, not terrible. The visual effects of the very end were bad, but there was so much throughout the film that was so good. Like,
hey, this looks like where I work right here.
They made you believe that Peter Weller was in that outfit. They did things like this in the 80s. The behind the scenes stuff and the calculating stuff that, wasn't based on anything in reality back then, but they thought to do it. It was kind of like how Star Trek came up with the idea of the iPad well before, pads existed, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff in this film from a sci-fi angle, but then just from a satirical angle like this and, corporal punishment and stuff like that. There's a lot of amazing stuff in here. And then, of course, Clarence, played by Kurtwood Smith, was fantastic villain. Red Foreman from that 70s show.
Yep.
He was one of the best villains. I loved it. I just loved it. There's a lot of great stuff in this show, and it is so gruesome.
And it's set it had so many of the 80s. Like we got Bogomil from fucking the Beverly Hills. Like it had so many 80s like B-listers or C-listers or something like they keep popping up.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, that shot looks so good.
Yeah. It looks better now than you think about it, but shit, the title card. Oh my god. It's such a terrible title card. I remember so many movies having that Orion tag on them.
Orion was big deal back in the day. They were huge.
They were always such a guilty pleasure movie.
You just knew. You knew. Generator. They came out with some good stuff. You knew it was going to be a sci-fi trip.
Dude,
sure.
the one that I remember them popping up on all the time more than anything else was the Three Ninjas movies.
And, yes. Oh, I love Three Ninjas.
Holy shit, are those movies bad when you go back and watch them now, though?
So
my god.
They're so bad.
My god, dude. Like, I could get a migraine just listening to them say, "Aya!"
Oh, I know.
40 fucking times a scene.
I know. But it was great. It was so great.
Dude, the fucking the guy who played Colt in those movies, his mom was like the chick that God, why am I blanking on her name right now? But she was the chick that Ahsoka fought in The Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. He has a TikTok account and he's literally like questioning his mom, like, "Where's Thrawn?" She's just trying to do laundry or some shit. And I had no idea who he was. Like, I just thought like it was viral because he was her son. But it turns out he was fucking Colt from Three Ninjas. I was like, what? Holy fucking shit!
That's
hilarious. It was crazy.
Moving on. Well, any final thoughts on
RoboCop? No,
RoboCop,
not necessarily. I will say though, like if we were gonna do a watch party, it should probably be RoboCop. Like we haven't done a watch party in a while, and I think the original RoboCop would be a good one.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. I haven't seen it all the way through in a long time, but that'd be fun.
It has been a long time for me. Like I'm gonna feel like I'm seeing a new movie. Honestly, okay. It's been that long. I haven't seen the original RoboCop since before I knew how to drive.
Oh wow, like, I've seen it. I've seen it within the last couple of years, but just because I love it. It is one of those films though where people do like. There's people that recognize that it is satire, and there's people that just don't. You know, that's in the age. That's back in the age where cops could be cops. Stuff like right. It's not the point of this film. Just like Starship Troopers is not a pro-war film. It's satirical.
Oh my god.
It's not the point of it. And I bring that up because it's the same director.
I hope nobody's taking social cues from Starship Troopers. By the way, that thing.
I know. So anyway, it's a great film. You know what I've always wanted to do though? The Canada put out their own series of RoboCop films. Like
really?
they got the rights to it, and I see them every once in a while on Amazon. They made like 4 or 5 films, R-rated.
Robot Dudley Do, right?
No, it is. It's RoboCop. And I think they were made for TV R-rated films that they showed in Canada that I've always wanted to go back and watch.
Made for TV R-rated does not.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like regular TV. I think it was like an HBO style,
the premium cable. Yeah.
But I've always wanted to see it, and they always looked really bad. But I mean, the official sequels were pretty bad. So. Moving on, though, today is an anniversary. Oh, let's see. Did Jeffrey have a comment? I haven't seen RoboCop. Good God, Jeffrey. All right, we're gonna.
Oh shit! All right, you can get in on the watch party right there.
There you go.
I gotta find. Let's see if it's streaming anywhere right now.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Well, like for like free as a part of the.
Oh, maybe not. It's on Showtime.
It's part of a premium subscription for Amazon Prime
on Showtime. So no, it's not. Maybe we'll have to rent it or something, or I have a copy of it, and let's do it that way.
There we go.
All right, moving on though, we had a anniversary today. 14 years ago, The Dark Knight came out. Arguably one of, if not the best comic book film of all time. Certainly when it came out, it was the best comic book film of all time. It was also the highest grossing comic book film of all time when it came out. This is one of the first movies outside of Titanic that broke that $1 billion threshold, and everybody was like, holy shit, now it's like, 15th, 16th on the long list, Disney. But back then it was a huge accomplishment. It was like a comic book film broke $1 billion. That's insane, And
it doesn't feel like a comic book film. Like that was the key to it.
Yeah.
Is that it does not feel like a comic book film. And they take the Joker to a place where like nobody had really done properly. Like everybody took the Joker as a Joker, not the Joker, as a Joker. Heath Ledger played the Joker like Batman fans would expect a live action Joker to be played, who is like, he is psychotic. Like he's not funny. Like he thinks he's funny, and the shit that he thinks is funny is straight up psychotic. And then like the most interesting fan theory came out around it to where he was ex-military, like he was ex-special forces, and he was just like, you know what, fuck the world. And he's talking about like being like sent over, like tried to like put some motivation behind it. It was like truly chilling to think about like what would happen if something like that was done.
Because they didn't tell you.
No fucking idea.
That was the best. They didn't even hint to tell you. And this was before the age of, we've had 3 different people play Spider-Man and 3 different sets of Spider-Man villains within the same decade. Before The Dark Knight, the last person to play the Joker was Jack Nicholson, and that was in 1989. And here we were in 2008, and a new version of the Joker was coming, and everybody was like, Heath Ledger, what the fuck? But then they dropped this image, and everybody stopped talking. Like it was a year long of, you can't tell me that the kid from 10 Things I Hate About You, the hippie from 10 Things I Hate About You, is going to be the Joker. And then Christopher Nolan dropped this image, and everybody shut the hell up and was like, "Oh God, I need to see this film."
I mean, there were still plenty of. Honestly, I think the shut up moment came from his opening scene in the movie, and it was well deserved at that point.
Mhm.
Like, I remember, being one of those people. I remember being one of those people who was like, I just can't see Heath Ledger playing that role, because I remember seeing him in A Knight's Tale. I mean, like, oh well, I mean,
which he was great in.
Yeah, he was great in, but I just thought of him as a pretty boy. I was just like, I don't see him
Sure.
playing the Joker.
Sure.
And then you see it, and then like, I don't even remember if the trailer showed, like, straight up showed his face. Like, I can't remember if they
the
did.
first trailer didn't. You heard his voice. You see his face.
Like, you saw
this is the first
mask,
full trailer. And the teaser, you just heard his voice and his laugh. But this was the first full trailer.
Okay,
and
right, so right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I remember the first trailer where, like, they had the bank scene shot where he's like right before they've started the bank heist, and he's holding the clown mask, and that was what. And that was like, nobody had seen like the actual Joker, so everybody thought that it was just gonna be like a shitty rubber mask that he was gonna wear, and they were like, oh well, he's a pretty boy. They're not gonna hide, like, they don't want to hide his face. They want to have like that physical draw. And I was just like, eh. But after I saw the movie, that was like, damn.
I saw the movie opening weekend, and I saw it in Rome. I was still serving in the military.
I was gonna say, you were still Air Force at that point.
Yeah, I had not taken a vacation in a year. I had not taken any time off in a year, and my boss straight up told me, "Dude, you need to go take a vacation." So instead of going home, I took a 30-day trip around Europe by myself. And when The Dark Knight came out, opening weekend, I was in Rome, and I literally got off the train. And before going to the Colosseum, before going to the Vatican, I spent the first half of my first day in Rome trying to find one theater that would play this in English. And I went to 7 different theaters before I found one midnight showing in English. And I bought a ticket, and I saw it that night. And I'm so glad I did, because it was amazing. I mean, yes, Heath Ledger's performance is a highlight of this film, but as a sequel, as a Batman film, as just a crime film, this film excels on so many levels. It is a really, really good film.
It really feels like a mob film. Like, it feels like a mob crime film, like thriller. And like, it doesn't feel like Batman versus the Joker or anything like that. It feels like a fucking vigilante detective trying to do a job that the cops just straight up can't, because this guy just, he doesn't have rules. Like, he's straight off the board. He's a wild card.
Aaron Eckhart's fantastic in this movie. Aaron Eckhart
did great.
Recasting her role for Maggie Gyllenhaal was a great decision. She was fantastic in this movie. Yep. There's just, I mean, the scope of this film, they put a lot of money into this film. I mean, this was still fairly early on in Christopher Nolan's career. You know, this is, I mean, he was, you know, people appreciated what he did with Batman Begins, but this was the movie that everybody was like, oh shit, he is a force to be reckoned with, that he can make something this good out of a Batman film. You know, it's insane how good this movie is. And I still know people that won't watch it because of the urban legends that this movie drove Heath Ledger to suicide. I still,
somebody who had a drug problem that was that bad had been suffering with it for some time.
Not to mention, a lot of people that don't have drug problems said that the sleeping pills that he was on were dangerous. So, whatever happened, it was not because of this film, but I'm grateful that we got this final performance from him, and I hands down believe that he deserved the Oscar for it. I don't believe it was some post-mortem handout. I think he earned it, and I think this film set the tone for what comic book films should be, and the MCU. You know, and people like the Russo brothers, when they made, Winter Soldier, they saw this film as the template for, oh, we can take these films seriously,
Right.
And
which honestly, that's a great segue into our last point here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the direction that Marvel needs to go, because when they decide to take their movie seriously, that is when they do that. Honestly, I think that's when like the best parts of their movies come out.
Yeah.
And this and I know that there are going to be people who are going to be lighting up, especially with the franchise that we're talking about specifically, but I'm going to stick to it on that.
I'm guessing that means you want to start talking about Thor.
Yeah. I mean, it's our last topic, man. Let's talk about Thor.
Thor 4, the first character
4.
to get a fourth film in the MCU. And yeah, man. If anybody that's followed me knows that I went fairly deep into this with the Victims and Villains podcast, but I haven't really had a chance to talk to you fully about it. But no spoilers up top, and then we can just destroy this film in spoiler territory. But no spoiler comments. How do you feel about this film, and how do you feel it ranks with the previous entries?
This is the bottom of the list for the Thor films and the Thor appearances in general. I'm in a difficult place because like I split my review when I first sent it to you between the 3 acts, because it was wildly different between all 3. Like it was weird. It really did feel like there were 3 separate movies here, and then they took each act from like Thor seemed like a different character between the first and second acts and the third act. Like the first and second acts, he was kind of the same guy, and then in the third act, like there seemed to be a pretty radical change. It was like, okay, this is kind of out of left field based on what you've built us. There is, if you were somebody who watched Ragnarok and thought that there was too much comedy that they needed to balance out with the next film, you're going to be very disappointed, because they took a hard turn right back into comedy.
Oh, I think they bypassed comedy. I think they went into Minions silliness.
They went into attempted comedy. I'll put it that way, because there were, I mean, so I saw it on Thursday. If you really want to go there, something must have gotten out already. I mean, the theater that I go to is kind of on the outskirts of town, so I don't think it's the most popular one to go to yet, because it is still fairly new. But there were not a lot of people in my theater. There were very few people in my theater. And so I couldn't really get a good gauge on how the audience was feeling when the jokes got cracked. There were definitely some laughs. But like, it's not the same as when you're in a full theater and you can kind of feel how everybody else reacts around you. So, I mean, but as far as me and my wife were concerned, like there was like 1 or 2 jokes that they cracked where I genuinely thought it was like, hey, that was a good one. Like that was clever. Let's let that go. Some of the others just felt like tired and dragged out. Like they really fucking went out there. Thor's Day is a real thing, Jeffrey Miller. Okay. Like don't give me that. I see your comments. I was where the name came from, damn it.
Yeah.
The movie would have been a lot better if this is how Thor always was. Like I feel like if we hadn't had an expectation for him at all, like if they had always taken him this zany, it wouldn't have been that bad, because it would have been expected. But also, if this was the kind of Thor that I would have expected, I wouldn't have even gone. Because if this is how they had treated Thor, the character who is my absolute favorite in the MCU until now. And one of my favorites, like my top 3 for my comic reading history. I was like, if this is the direction that they're going to go with him continuously, Marvel might lose me. Actually, like they might lose me on future. Like if they have another Thor film, like if I see even a hint that it's going to be anything like this one again, I'm waiting until that shit comes out on Disney Plus. Like I'm not going to buy a ticket to that, because and honestly, I'm feeling the same way about the MCU as a whole right now. Like the last few films that I've seen, barring a couple standouts, have been kind of disappointing. And so I'm like, this is kind of a thing. And I know this is a harsh review, but damn it, man, I care about this franchise, and I was really close to this character, and to see this go the way that it did, I was very disappointed.
Well, you wondering if it was just the showing that you were at? I saw it on opening night. It was a packed theater, and yes, people laughed at certain jokes. Yes, people didn't laugh at other jokes. But I will say one thing: I saw more people get up to go to the bathroom or to go get a refill of popcorn or to do anything than I've ever seen in an opening night at a Marvel film. I mean, I saw one guy get up 3 different times in the movie, and I could just tell they were in no hurry to come back.
We just don't care.
The audience was checked out, and I was awestruck. I was like, this is opening night. That means that you came out to an MCU movie on opening night and it can't hold your attention. That was shocking to me. And I completely understood. And I get what you're saying, because we've seen Thor, not just in the Thor movies, but we've seen him sporadically through other films. And I honestly think that his best performance, the Chris Hemsworth's best performance in the character, was in Infinity War. I think what he does as a character, the range of his character, I thought that was a great portrayal of him. But when you get to these, one appearance, he's solemn. One appearance, he's comedy. One appearance, he's solemn again. One appearance, he's so clumsy. It's like he's not very intelligent. And then you get this, and it's just like it's basically like he just is a child who keeps on going through mental breaks, because it's like every time we see him, he's re-dealing with something. He has kind of a happy ending in this film, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next film he was going through something else. I don't want to do any spoilers, but I do feel like Taika Waititi's tone of him clashes with the other entries, and where Ragnarok was this thing that did grow on me and was this hit because it was new blood, it was a fresh voice to a franchise that wasn't as popular as the other franchises because he was so solemn. They injected this comedy where Ragnarok worked. Yeah, it's like they tripled down on that for this film, forgot to write a good storyline, and then just went balls out on everything. I mean, I heard, there are talks that he had a 4-hour cut, that he filmed stuff with Lena Headey and the guy from who's the guy from Game of Thrones that was in Infinity War?
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage. And what's his face from Jurassic Park that was in Thor Ragnarok?
Jeff Goldblum.
He filmed all this other content with these people that he comes out and says there's not going to be a director's cut. This is my director's cut. I mean, at what point is that just a waste of money and inefficient? There was an article that came out in March that said where Kevin Feige admitted that in Phase 4 he has not been as hands-on as he was in previous phases. And
you done fucked up, man.
I mean,
you done fucked up.
It feels like they allowed Taika to have a blank check with this film, and he went way over the edge with it. And I'm not surprised that it's clashing with people as much as it is. I'm not surprised by your review at all.
It sounds like Sam Raimi got the same thing for Doctor Strange, but like that came out pretty well.
I
Like,
mean, it wasn't the best film, but it was certainly a tighter film than this.
I mean,
We
it
we
felt like
had
a Raimi
problems with
film. Like
we
it
had
felt like a
problems
Raimi
with
film
that
for
film.
sure. Oh
That
yeah,
that film
yeah.
was a little all over the place, but it had a stronger narrative than this film. If there was another 2 hours a part of this film, I can't even imagine if the plot was even recognizable in a 2 hour version of this, because it's not if this is the tighter version, there's hardly a plot in this film. There's hardly a villain. I'll tell you that.
Cece asked me an interesting question. She asked me if the Marvel films that have been coming out are leading to like a bigger like team up event, kind of like the previous ones. And she's been in the middle of rewatching the Marvel films when this one came out. She's watching Ant-Man right now. She had just finished Age of Ultron not too terrible long ago, and I mean, she's taken a long time because she's watching them in between the stuff that she's doing. So we're not watching those together. Like,
Right.
and so she asked me, is like, are these all coming towards like another like big like comic event or something like Infinity War? Because she's not familiar with the comics. She didn't know which direction to go. And I
Right.
honestly, like, I couldn't answer that for her because in the initial Disney Plus streaming shows that we had coming out, it seemed based off of WandaVision and Captain Marvel, which was kind of like towards the tail end of that as well. Also, Spider-Man Far From Home was Far From Home was the second one. No Way Home's the third.
Right.
In Far From Home, we all had instances of the Skrulls. And it was like, okay, are we going towards the Secret Wars? Are we going for the Secret Invasion? It's like, okay, this is.
Well, we are getting that as a show. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting that as a show, but not necessarily like. It seemed like because we had multiple like end credit scenes where like, hey, this is what's going on, which was how the Infinity Wars were being led up to. They were slow rolling it into something like that. They were using end credit scenes, and in particular, like I'm not going to say anything about this film's end credits. Although I will tell you that it's kind of the same thing. Like I don't feel like these are leading towards any big event. Eternals didn't have an end credit scene that felt like they were going towards like a bigger towards the Secret Wars or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 4 seems to give directors more space to do their thing and they don't click with the audience for sure. Sure. I mean, I don't know anything about Chloe Zhao's history, but Eternals did not click with me at all.
Yeah.
I've seen Sam Raimi films and it felt like a Sam Raimi film. That felt pretty close to like the tone that I was expecting from him. The story didn't go the way that I was expecting, but it wasn't bad. Like it wasn't a bad film. It was like middle of the pack as far as Marvel films are concerned.
To answer Cece's question, Kevin Feige in that same interview said, yes, we have dropped hints that some people may pick up and they may present themselves more strongly in the near future. And he has said that he is going to drop some stuff here at San Diego Comic-Con that hints towards the future. But he says as the Phase 4 is wrapping up. So I think that means they're about to announce Phase 5. So I think when we look back at Phase 4, it's going to be the filler. It's going to be we had 3 strong phases of building up the Infinity Saga. Phase 4 is going to be about our heroes separating and kind of doing their own adventure. And Phase 5 is going to bring them back. So, I think in retrospect, they're going to be like, oh, well, Phase 4 was always meant to feel aimless as kind of a cop out.
I hate that though. Like that,
such a
shitty excuse.
Because it is aimless. But I think that's where they're going to go. I think they're going to be like, well, that was the plan in order to get you back on board for when we start going heavy in one direction for Phase 5. That's an excuse.
That is a crappy business decision at best, because then you're throwing out you're just mailing it in for a few films just to get you until you've gotten like a writing team, or Kevin Feige's had enough of a break to where he can like work on a bigger narrative in the films that he's the creative fucking guy for. Like, dude, this is your job, man. Like, you don't want to have an entire couple of years. I know COVID threw a lot of shit off. I know that a pandemic made things really messy for a while, but like we've seen content come out that was also affected by that did not suffer from the same creative issues.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand again that those other films don't have quite the expectations on them that the Marvel Cinematic Universe probably does. That is a fair point. But I mean, at the same time, those also don't have Marvel Cinematic Universe resources.
Sure.
So it's like at what point do we strike a balance between being able to uphold an expectation or just create a new one that isn't disappointing? Because right now they've created a new one and it is disappointing.
Well, and I can understand the argument of, well, not everything is an Avengers level thing. Even in the comics, they go back to the individual titles and then they have these team up titles. Okay, sure, but then the people that follow those individual titles still expect them to be good. You know, I like it when there's a Justice League team up, but I still expect the Batman individual comics to have good storylines. We've gotten way out there in terms of the MCU talk. And I think it's because the main stuff we want to talk about this film is all in the spoiler category. So,
yeah, but not even affecting the MCU in the greater scheme of things either. Though that's the unfortunate thing. Let's dive into spoilers. Let's jump in there because I don't want to rag on this one for too terrible much longer. Like if we hit an hour and a half and are able to end there, I think we're in good shape.
I think that's a good plan. One more thing before we go into spoilers. So this is where this is currently sitting. Now, this morning, there was a bunch of people online that said, holy shit, I don't know why people think that Love and Thunder isn't doing well, because worldwide, it's already at $712 million without China. And if you go back to Ragnarok, it only made 853. So people were looking at this and saying, holy shit, it's already at 712 without China. Box Office Mojo, which a lot of people use to say the box office of things, messed that up. The actual worldwide is 497. It had a 62 or 66% drop in its second weekend, which is huge.
That is a massive drop off.
Massive drop off. And it wasn't even like a holiday weekend or anything. It's first weekend. So I think word of mouth definitely affected that. Not to say that it still couldn't go on to make a bunch of money. That's still a lot of money, but I don't think that's where Disney thought it was going to be at this point.
Right.
Let's switch over.
I don't care about the China audience because you watch that movie in China, you're not seeing the same film.
Oh, for sure not.
That is a big thing to keep in mind. Is like I don't
Disney
care how
cares about that China audience because
I'm sure
they got
do.
money. They would, like you just mentioned, they would film specific scenes for the China audience in order to get that China money.
I'm almost interested in seeing what the China version of this film is.
They didn't make it. They didn't make it because China has been shutting out Disney for the last year and a half. So I don't think there was one. We're in spoiler alert. I'm going to put it at the bottom. If you haven't seen it and you don't want to hear spoilers, don't listen to us because we're about to go into spoiler talk.
I'm gonna do a quick rapid fire here real quick, and if you want to address these points, hit me with them. Okay. These are just
breathe in between points so I can address some of
them. Valkyrie completely wasted in this movie, which was really disappointing to me.
Agreed. It felt like they restarted her character to the drunk character she was in Thor Ragnarok, as if the events. But like she had no development and she didn't have time to breathe. And a lot of the things that she had previously teased about her character in this film were either cut or they just decided not to film it. But yeah, she had zero development.
The scene in Omnipotent City with all the gods, completely pointless. It did nothing for me for the movie, and it was completely useless. Fuck those fucking goats. That was just stupid.
It was a joke that went on for 7 times, and I will admit there was a girl next to me in the theater that laughed every single time, but I got annoyed after the second time. Yeah.
Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, Thor love triangle. Crap.
That was so over the top.
It was uncomfortable in some places.
The first time it happened, it was weird, but it could have been like But then they kept doing it, and
The first time they did it, when he was like trying to call
in the
Mjolnir to him,
party, yeah,
and fucking Stormbreaker comes in slow. That was one of the moments where it's like, that's actually kind of funny. Like
it's
that's
kind of
actually
funny.
sort of clever.
But then when they
I
knock your head over it with several more of those
God,
scenes,
he fucking pours a beer on it. It's like, is it
he
a love?
scratches it like it's got a chin or something. It
Is it a
was
fucking? Is it a love interest joke that we're trying to make here,
yes,
or is it like a father son, like a jealous lover joke, or like
that's how it came off.
the
Honestly,
abandoned child joke? Like I couldn't fucking figure it out.
it was
And
weird. It was
it
weird.
didn't know what it was doing. Christian Bale horribly underutilized in this film, and
What happened to the best villain we've ever had in the MCU? If that's the case, where was he? I mean, you
he
tell
wasn't
me
in this movie. He
you
had
you
he
give
had like shit motivation too. Like we didn't actually see him
him
be a
being a
god
god
butcher. Like
butcher.
got nothing.
You call him the God Butcher, and then he butchers the gods off screen. What?
The gods could have given a fuck about him. They take him to the city. It's like, well, he can't get here. But
And that
really?
opening scene was such a misdirect for the tone of this film. The opening scene was great. I loved it. But then once he gets to that oasis, then you're reminded that this is a Taika Waititi film, because on one side of the screen you got Christian Bale putting up an Oscar level performance. He is performing. He is showing emotion. On the other side, you've got this over the top comic version of a god, and I don't care if it's the tone is supposed to be there because he's so disconnected from the troubles of this little pawn. There's a way to play it that's not silly, and it was so silly that it was clashing with what Christian Bale was doing in the same scene. And from that point on, I knew that's what this whole film's going to be like, isn't it?
In the comic that I read where Gore shows up, Thor has, and this is a recent version. If there's an older version, I haven't read that one yet. I have a vague memory of it, but of there being another piece of content, but I don't know if it's actually separate to what was there. In the version that I read, and it's recent, Thor has already been through some shit, like a lot of shit, like in the line that was there. And some pretty crazy awesome stuff, actually. Like I'm gonna have to pull it up somewhere and just be like, hey, you got to read this. So let's see. It is going to be is it Ages of Thunder? No, I don't believe it's going to be Ages of Thunder. This is probably going to be it was like right after Black Winter, or it is Black Winter, I think is where it was actually at. God of Thunder. Okay, so it's straight up God of Thunder. It's Jason Aaron's run, and so he brings out the God Butcher, and the God Butcher is one of the strongest characters Thor couldn't beat alone, requiring all three to team up to stop him. This story set up the later developments that led to Jane Foster becoming the God of Thunder. And so I had that expectation in there, like right off the bat. But that run like is right around the same vein of some of the other runs, like Black Winter. There were some really good Thor stories that kind of came out all in that same span of recent comics. And Gore is fucking scary, man. Gore is a fucking scary character. And then in this one, I'm like, okay, we got Christian Bale. Let's see how he does it. I was expecting a voice actor with a CGI because Gore is not a human character. He's not a human. Like he's not a humanoid. He is in this one, but
yeah.
But it was interesting. Like it was interesting to see where he got, and then he gets to this oasis, and it really throws it off for me. Like I feel like the god could have interacted, but like in the comic, like that's not how it goes down. Like the gods just basically abandon his planet, and he gets fed up with it because he'd been praying to him like his entire fucking life. And so in seeking revenge against that one, like it just leads to continuous a destiny of
so in the comic,
the
god isn't like, oh look, there's the one thing that can kill me on the ground. Don't pick it up.
No,
of course not, because that's called lazy, ridiculous writing.
Horribly lazy. Like,
I don't want to make this about Zack Snyder or other directors, but when I saw that scene, I was like, how would Zack Snyder do a god talking to a minions a small peon scene, or how would the guy that directed the Immortals with Henry Cavill have a scene about gods talking to minions? It could have, like, they chose to go so silly, and I get the purpose of the tonal difference, but it was just so silly and over the top that it threw me out of the scene. It wasn't, oh, that's creative because he's just so big and powerful that he doesn't care, that he's laughing off. But it just ruined this. It was just tonal clashes in the very first scene. It was
such a lazy write out.
Yeah.
The big problem with it, though, on top of it, is the way that they handle gore throughout it. It was like, yes, Christian Bale acts well with the material that he was given. I'll give him that. But like
when he's
in
on
the
screen,
in the comics, and I know that in the comics is a phrase that people hate hearing when we're talking about Marvel films, but in the comics, gore is not like he wouldn't be a kidnapper. That doesn't vibe, because he's actually, like, he sees himself as on the side of mortals, like, and so like trying to kidnap children to entice a god is kind of like the opposite of where we would go. Like that doesn't give me any fear. Like we need to like show.
Also, your name's not Gore the kidnapper; it's Gore the God Butcher. But then the whole idea that he captured children, knowing that Thor in his heart would go to save those children, kind of conflicts with the idea that all gods must die because they're evil. That's not the same. Those are two different ideologies, that a god would do anything to save these children, but he's also a god that must die because gods are selfish and they don't care about anybody. Those don't fit together. And that being the whole point of it, I was like, where's the butchering? I don't want to see it in some little screens on the Guardians of the Galaxy ship. I wanted to actually see why we should care about this guy, He was not intimidating, and everything that Taika hyped him up to be, I was like, it must have been in your 4-hour cut, because it wasn't in this cut.
I mean, it was.
Keep on going with your rapid fire. You were on a roll.
I mean, that was kind of the bulk of it.
What about Jane Foster? How did you feel about? I know you were hoping that they'd go the cancer route.
I made the prediction, and like as soon as I saw her in the chemo, I was like, all right, that's the route that they're going. That was the route that they should have gone. And I was like, she's gonna save this movie, because my first thought was they're going to make her the new Thor. Like, this is Thor handing over the reins to her. And then they're like, nope, not going that way. Like, well, you motherfuckers, like, what are you gonna do then? It's like, because this whole Love and Thunder thing that they led off to in the end, of where Thor raises Gore's daughter.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Where in the fuck did that come from? Like, why is that the direction that you guys decided to go? Could you only get Natalie Portman for one more? Like, is that what fucking happens? Like, she wouldn't sign on for anything. I fucking was disappointed in this movie. Okay,
I was disappointed. I'm sure a lot of people were disappointed in Jane, because
this is the most potential her character has had in this fucking Marvel franchise,
and they made it a joke. We don't even get the transformation scene. We don't get the god butchering Gore scenes. We don't get the Jane transforming scene, and the majority of her character is coming up with a dumb catchphrase. It was God. They kind of injected these old scenes of trying to get you to care about the Thor-Jane romance that was the weakest part of the previous films. So they do this kind of a narrated thing of them going back and showing how they fell apart.
Dude, the fucking narration, man. Like, it was so, like, the tone of it was so fucked. It threw me out of the movie each time it popped up. Like,
and when you realize that it's the director narrating it, and he kind of wrote it in as such so that his character could be that. When you realize it's the director, it's even more egregious, because it feels like an editing thing. Like, the director was like, oh, this really isn't making sense. Let me do a voiceover and tell and kind of course correct it through a voiceover.
Narrative at all pisses me off. Like, you didn't need to explain any of this. We've seen this character grow. Like, we've seen how he came to be where he is at.
Right.
like we don't need a fucking play-by-play. We don't need a recap. It was like, you're not making a brand new film. You're making the fourth in a fucking franchise.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this? And honestly, like, Jojo Rabbit was great. I haven't seen too many of other. I haven't seen any other Taika properties. I saw Jojo Rabbit. I've seen Ragnarok, and I've seen this. And like, Jojo Rabbit seemed like tonally like it was zany. It was weird.
That
it was
was
funny,
a comedy drama movie, but he nailed both sides of it. Yeah, it was great.
God damn, the drama in that movie, they nailed it so well. But it's like,
yeah, where was that here? Where was the? It was like
was that here?
He forgot to do any of that, and when he tried, it was so quick. Anytime there was something serious in this film, it was bookended by silliness, and then it was just over. I mean, Jane's death in this film was like a blip, like you didn't even have time to care about it. It was just, it's coming, it's there, it's gone, moving on.
Let me give you like the quick rundown of these characters as they are in the comics. So we've got Gore, who never believed, like, who gave up on believing in gods. Like, he literally gave up on believing in them actually being real because they abandoned his planet while it was like dying from waste, starvation.
So he wasn't possessed or influenced by the sword.
He was not possessed by a necrosword or anything like that. He didn't run into a god and be like, oh, this is who I've been praying to this whole time. No, he'd already given up on them even existing.
Okay.
Because he couldn't see any proof. Like, he didn't see it. And a lot of people can identify with that. Holy shit, can a lot of people identify with that? And then, like, he finds out that the gods are real. And after he kills his first god, like, he's gaining his power from like sucking their blood or something. I can't remember, but like, he's using God's blood basically to become more powerful. He enslaves a few. He doesn't kill all of them. Like, he enslaves a few, but he's killing them in fucking brutal ways. Like, and like, even the path of death that he leaves behind him in this movie is not illustrative of what he does. Horrible waste. Like, the way that he does steal Thor's axe and opens the door to eternity. Like, that happens. So it's like that didn't surprise me at all. Like, that was kind of par for the course. This fucking shadow realm shit crap low, fucking out of nowhere.
Okay, let's talk about that though, because Jeffrey Miller talks about more of the small planet scene would be good. I did think that was one of the highlights of the film when it went to black and white, and then like whenever Jane held up the
literal
hammer,
tonal shift. It was a literal
tonal shift, but it looked good. Like, when we saw little bleeds of color, there were parts of that scene that was cool. And the Little Planet reminded me of The Little Prince. It's an old book. It's an old movie. I did like that. But yeah, every time there was something cool, it was bookended by stupidness, by a screaming goat, or by a stupid decision. Valkyrie, who is a warrior, gets hurt on the battlefield. And instead of Jane and Thor saying, "We've got him, let's finish this fight," it's, "Oh, one of the three of us is injured, we have to leave." That, you don't do that in war. That doesn't make any sense. You're there to fight, not to.
She wouldn't let it happen.
Run off after the first person gets hurt.
They had all been talking about dying in battle and making it to Valhalla. Like,
yeah, she would want to die in battle. That's what happened to that.
Where the fuck did that go?
But oh my God, she's hurt. We have to leave, Thor. Now we got to leave now.
And they were talking about it so like matter of factly, like it was like, oh, everybody knows about Valhalla. You'll never make it to Valhalla. Oh my God, like you got to die in battle. Like we'll just go to Valhalla. It'll be great.
And of course, like, the evil guy's plans are drawn out where everybody can see. Oh, he needs to get conveniently Thor's axe to get to eternity. And
take Jeff's comment down here. We've seen this.
I'm sorry. I'm
still
sorry.
Up around screen. He's got some others.
We'll get to those in a second. But if the whole thing is the bad guy needs Thor's axe to get to eternity so that he can make a one wish, and Thor's like, "I know where eternity is. You don't have to tell me, Valkyrie." Why didn't Thor go there anytime in the last 5 years to rectify any of the shit that's happened? If he knew where eternity was and his weapon is the only weapon to open it, why didn't he go there? That doesn't make any sense.
if he could give the power of Thor to a bunch of children at a fucking whim, why in the shit during Infinity War did every Wakandan not get the power of Thor?
Right. And he didn't even have his weapon when he did that. He had Zeus's bolt.
That might be the only way to explain that away, is because he used Zeus's bolt to do it instead.
Could
But
we
if
not
he's
have had a
using Zeus's
scene?
bolt, how is he giving them the power of Thor?
And it
How is
just
he not
seemed
giving
like
them
he
the power of
knew he
Zeus?
could do that. There was no scene where he learned he could do that. It was just he knew he could do that. He knew where these things were. If he knew all this time, why didn't he do this any time before? It doesn't make any sense.
Somebody was asking me how he was like mentally projecting himself, and I was like, well, he had done that before through Heimdall, and they conveniently had Heimdall's kid. They're like, Heimdall didn't have a fucking kid. Like, when in the fuck did Heimdall have a kid between like being on the run all the fucking time or dying?
Yeah.
Like, and fuck, he was not being serious talking to those kids in cages. He was a bumbling idiot in those moments still too.
But those could have been like, hey, but he was trying to figure out where they were, and Valkyrie is just messing with him. Stop, Val. He's trying to figure out where they are. Stop
but at the
messing with
same
them.
time, he's talking to them like this is no big deal, whatever, no big problem. They are literally in a fucking death cage flying through fucking space towards a guy called
Asgardian.
God
It's actually
Butcher.
a good thing if you die. Don't worry about it. You know, yeah. It was weird. It was weird.
And again, yeah, they bring up that thing. It's like, well, if you die, you'll just go to Valhalla. It's no big deal. But like, dude, you're talking to fucking kids right now.
And the kid thing, there's so much kid stuff injected into this film. Besides, before we even get to the final part, did you know that the shadow villains
trap pissed me off so fucking hard?
The shadow villains were drawn by Taika's kids. Did you know that? Gore's daughter is Chris.
Fuck over yourself, man.
Gore's daughter is Chris Hemsworth's daughter. I
remember seeing that, and that honestly, I was fine with that. That's kind of cute.
I'm fine with that. She wasn't bad, but I mean, it was almost like they injected these kids to be like, oh, hey, you know, you can't really critique the film. It's kids, you know. But that scene, that final fight scene where he gives them all the power of Thor temporarily, and then they just go batshit. I was like, really? This is the finale?
Dude, they kill Gore the God Butcher with I can't like, well, first of all, Frog Thor fucks no, that was probably, I think that was a different part of the run. It's like Gore fight Frog Thor. Like I read another comic line like really close to this, and it was actually Donald Blake went fucking nuts because Donald Blake is a real person in the Thor in the comics.
He was almost in the original, but they decided not to have him in the
original. I think Frog Thor actually beat the fucking hell out of Donald Blake. Because Donald Blake gets like the power of the gods. Thor gets trapped in an alternate realm. Like he gets trapped in the realm that Donald Blake gets banished to whenever Thor is out. And so it's like this horrible existence for him. Well, he finds a way to get Thor in there, and like he decides that he's going to go and kill all the Thors, and fucking Frog Thor beats the living piss out of him. And so I think that's what I was thinking of. Like Thor has to have like another team up with some other gods in order to kill Gore.
Apparently not in this. That's kind of what they were saying. We need to go to Omni City and build an army.
It seemed like, yeah.
Then they get out of there with just the bolt, and they're like, "Oh, we just have another weapon. That should be enough to kill him."
Okay.
Jeffrey says,
I had to pull this up again here because. Yeah.
What are you looking for?
I'm just. Oh god, I see this here and I remember because like there's like the symbiote Venom is a part of Gore's story too, and that pops in there. Like
Jeffrey says, I have a feeling they want to redeem Gore's character in the end, so they tried to toe down the butcher part. Yeah, the end was a mix of, it was kind of
you don't need to redeem every fucking villain out there, man.
And it was almost played off as Wanda was in the Doctor Strange movie of, was he influenced heavily by the sword, and did he really want to do that, or was that the sword willing him to do that? And then, was that why he listened to Thor? But still, the guy that wanted to kill all gods, then gets his daughter back and entrusts a god to take care of her? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think she's actually she actually looked like a character that I've seen in the comics before. I can't remember the fucking name of her, but like the body that she inhabits is like all cosmic. She doesn't have like
she's
skin or something.
Birthed of eternity or
you
whatever.
you see it in the reflection in the water for a little bit, and I was like, wait a minute, I was like, oh shit, I've seen that before.
And for some reason, she has powers.
For some reason, I thought it was a celestial at first, but that's not what it was. I can't fucking.
Well, they say they call her birthed of eternity. So with the powers of a god.
That's not it.
That's what it was in the film. I'm saying. But he didn't wish for his child to be a god. He just wished for his child to come back. But now she has powers. Seth is such a bad mood right now. Finish off with something positive. We'll try.
You know what? Like his dialogue with Jane as she was dying was actually not bad. It just wasn't earned, and it was over so quick that it just it was so out of place. With serious rewrites of the first two acts.
We didn't get a chance to grieve for her because in the end credit scene, she's already back in Valhalla, which if Taika gets a fifth film, you know it's going to be about Valhalla. You know they're bringing her back. That's not done.
Go fuck yourself. Do not do that shit.
It's happening.
If they're thinking about doing that, don't fucking do that.
They would not have shown Valhalla in the end like that if that wasn't like the next film. This film, he kind of ends on a happy note with his new daughter. The next film, he's going to be sad and grieving her, and he's going to decide to go to Valhalla to bring her back. That's what the next film's going to be about.
Another fucking thing though, like they didn't lead up to Thor wanting to be a parent fucking at all.
No,
and so that isn't even like a happy ending for him. That's just something he's just like, well, okay, I'll accept it.
They didn't tease that he had a hole missing that she filled in his heart, or that he needed something.
Nothing.
What you talked about earlier about these being different films, Alan Cram said similar things about that, especially the first half with the montage with Guardians of the Galaxy. Felt like that was a whole different thing.
Fast.
And there was stuff in the trailers.
There was no point in them being there.
There was stuff in the trailers for that wasn't even in the film. So I feel like that was a larger part of this film that then they turned into a montage so that they can clear the connections with the previous MCU films, and Taika could just do the film that he wanted, because he was constrained by that,
Such a waste.
I'm trying to think of positives, Jeffrey. I gave this film a 1.5, 1.75.
I got fucking nothing, man.
It was
even
film.
Him having the daughter. It felt like the filmmakers saw fucking the connection and how everybody felt when Tony Stark had his daughter. They're just like, oh, we want Thor to have that too. But like, no, it's been done.
It was earned.
Like, you don't get that. She even had like a similar mannerism too. Like she was like the sassy kid.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What? No. That's like it was almost a ripoff. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
It was a weird way to cap off the film for sure. And then we got a tease of Hercules, whether or not that will actually, we're finally getting the Adam guy from the end of Guardians of the Galaxy. Adam Warlock's coming in Guardians 3, so maybe we will get Hercules eventually. I like the actor. He's from Ted Lasso. But he looked so bad and so green screened. I don't even think he was actually wearing that. It looked like a CGI outfit.
It felt like another moment with Harry Styles' character, who's where they're like, "Hey, we got him. Let's put him into a green screen."
Jeffrey
here.
Didn't even stick around for the end credit. I don't blame you.
You didn't miss anything. Like it was nothing. It was a pointless end credit scene.
The only thing I will say that they did clever in this movie was Russell Crowe having a Greek accent instead of having a British accent.
Right. Yeah, he's a Greek god. It makes sense.
Yeah, but you don't see that. You go back and you watch Liam Neeson in Clash of the Titans, or you watch these other ones. They usually have strong British accents. They don't have Greek. So that was clever. But then everything else was just over the top and silly and dumb. He couldn't be a strong Greek. We couldn't have gone like the 300 route. We had to go with dumb Greek with prancing around and,
First, it was like silly. If they had nailed the tone of gods being just these boisterous, ridiculous, gluttonous fucks, it would have fit perfectly. Like there should have like if they wanted to redeem Gore at all, they needed to like get people along with his cause. But it was like
But there
like
wasn't enough of that.
every interaction, like the movie should have been like Thor going to each god and be like, hey, I need your help. This is gonna be crazy. And him realizing the exact same things and feeling Gore's thing. But then the choice that he would have forced him to make at the end would have made a little bit more sense. It
like, had more weight.
Yeah. Like the gods are fucked. But
yeah, how
like,
about Zeus?
But if you chose your daughter, like that would mean that they don't win. Basically, it's like if you chose love,
right?
Then those gods don't win. But they couldn't lead up to that. They didn't earn anything out of the ending of this film.
It did not feel earned. The fetch quest stuff that led to nothing. It was just this movie just kind of,
and they didn't even kill Zeus. Like it was like he said, like it was a fucking fetch quest. They kill Zeus, and it's supposed to have all this weight, and then they don't stick to it.
And he's
that
just fine.
Fucking Hercules end credit scene would have made way more sense if Zeus had actually been dead.
Right, avenge his father,
revenge.
Not your father is pissed off.
You hurt my dad. I'm gonna punch you now. Like, no, you killed my fucking father out of the history that Hercules has. It's like the only father character that he had left, and you fucking killed him. Like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like Hercules is a badass in the comics. Let's see that fucking play out.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm trying to think of positive stuff right now. I went into this film knowing that it was a sequel to Ragnarok, knowing that it was a Taika Waititi film, knowing that it was going to have comedy into it, and knowing that people were saying it had too much comedy. I had read reviews, not in depth, but I had read the headlines. It was the same stuff that people were saying for Ragnarok, and Ragnarok did grow on me to the fact that I think it's the second best Thor film. I think Thor 1 is still the best Thor film. I know a lot of people will fight me on that, but I think it's Thor 1, Ragnarok, the second film, even though I didn't like it at first, A Dark World, and then this. Because even going into it with as open in a mind as I could, I did not expect it to be so silly. I expected it to be comedy, and you said it. This is from the guy that did Jojo Rabbit, and I just rewatched that film. God, that film's good. That film is so good. He can do it. He can do it. And I don't know if he was reined in on that film or he just cared more about that film. But this film felt like silliness, like Minions silly instead of comedy or a rom-com or whatever they were saying they were going to do. That's not what they did. They came out with silliness. And I'm tired of the bumbling idiot. I can't imagine that Thor fans like this clumsy, dumb version of their favorite superhero. It's not. It's one thing for Iron Man to be snarky, and funny. It's one thing for Loki to be funny at times, but Thor is less funny as he is dumb, like just big and dumb.
He was made too much of a punchline in Endgame. Like they went way too hard in making him just like the butt of the joke. Like he wasn't in on the joke; he was the butt of the joke. And it's like,
he got to his character in that film. At least he went.
Yeah, you could absolutely understand why he was in the state that he was in because like he had been through some shit.
Yeah,
like in his fucking first film, he realizes that his brother has been like this treacherous slug like his entire fucking life, and then loses him once. And then in Avengers, he gets him back just to realize it's like, okay, well, I've got to lock him up now because he just fucked up like an entire city and tried to kill one of my friends in the process. It's like, and then in the second movie, he loses his mother and then thinks that he loses his brother fucking again.
Yeah.
And then in the third film, reconnects with his brother again, fucking thinks that he's in a good place with him, but loses his entire fucking kingdom in the process. And then in Infinity War, he loses one of his best friends. He loses Heimdall, loses his brother for sure this time, literally in front of him. The rest of his kingdom, as far as he knows, has been fucking destroyed. But as it turns out, like only half of it was, which wasn't explained great in that movie. I'll give it that. And then like he finds himself having to be the leader of a kingdom after failing to stop like this genocidal psychopath. I'm not even going to call Thanos a psychopath because he's better than that. like he goes through all that. Like you could understand the trauma that this guy has been through. And I was really hoping that in this movie it was going to be him like trying to recover through it. But
That's what the trailers teased.
They
That's
made
the tone of the trailers.
They made his recovery through all of that shit a fucking montage.
And it wasn't even a recovery. It was a regression. I saw somebody, and I agreed that
a petulant child.
That he went back to child. Yes, he was a child in the first film. And what does he do in that opening scenes in this film? He destroys the most sacred buildings of this planet while taking out the bad guys, and does not, like, he kind of tries to have a conversation, but not really. It felt like he was back to that child status from the first film. Like they just regressed him all the way back to that. And he didn't learn anything from the last couple times we've seen him. I agree with Jeffrey that I think they found out Chris H is a funny guy in real life. He is a funny guy. He
did great with comedy when it's written well. And just in this case, like they beat it. It was beating a fucking dead screaming goat the whole goddamn time.
You can be a fun director. You can be a fun director. I've seen a lot of fun behind the scenes of them just having a blast. But if you're telling me that there's a 4-hour cut, that this guy spent all this time and money, they had to pay Lena Headey $7 million for a role she wasn't even in the film. At some point, that's got to get excessive to the point where a normal studio would be like, yo, you need to rein your shit in, you know?
Like, I feel like that if at best case, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before we close out, because we're already 11 minutes over what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But this is the last thing I'm going to say. If anything, Thor, as his history has shown in the history of these films, they have shown that Marvel will learn from their mistakes. They will be like, okay, after the first two Thor films, and seeing like kind of like the different way that he would interact in the Avengers movies, because the versions of him in the Avengers movies are better than the versions of him in any of his films. In some cases,
yes.
In most cases,
and
honestly.
He evolves in the Avengers films as well.
He has the most growth, if anything, in the Avengers films. This needs to be a lesson to be like, hey, you know what? Taika opened the door to a new version of the character. Let's hand the reins off to somebody else now. Like honestly, like they gave him the shift. They're like, okay, we can bring in a little bit of comedy. It's like, I'm not gonna tell you. I was like, all right, get rid of Taika Waititi, but honestly, like rein him in, because this was way too off board.
I don't believe Kevin Feige would have let this happen in the first 3 phases.
And I feel like there was a gamble. I feel like they were like that. He might have gotten that blank check, and maybe he wasn't. Maybe Kevin Feige or somebody higher up wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna check in on your drafts. Let's see how like your first cuts go. Let's kind of jump in there. Like that needs to come back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I feel like they didn't have that for Eternals. I don't think Eternals would have come out as bad as it did. I feel like Doctor Strange probably would have had like a little bit more of a clear direction for Wanda's character, because it's too early for her to be dead. Nobody's assuming, and nobody thinks that she is.
Nobody thinks she is.
Like,
but we didn't need an end credit scene to show that she wasn't. You know, like we knew enough. You know, we can't even let Natalie Portman be dead for 5 seconds. We have to show that she's alive somewhere. You know,
barring Spider-Man from the conversation, like, out of the Phase 4 films right now, and I even like I didn't give it a lot of praise, but honestly, Shang-Chi did better than everything that we've seen.
Shang-Chi was
so far.
Great. Like, we had issues with Shang-Chi, but in retrospect,
I had a
comparing
lot of
it to this,
but
you would have thought that there's no way in hell that could be better than
Shang-Chi's fucking Oscar worthy now. Like compared to this, like,
oh my gosh.
And I'm not talking about the shows. I'm not talking about the shows. And again, I said not including the Spider-Man films, because the Spider-Man films are definitely top of the tier. Like, No Way Home is the best Phase 4 film by far. Like, there's not even
Sony
a question.
Can hold that up next time there's negotiations saying, we were part of the best films of your Phase 4. You dropped the ball with all your other films.
Like, they fucking earned that. Loki, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, those shows did great. Hawkeye was better than this. and Hawkeye fell flat for me pretty kind of hard, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But Hawkeye did better than this because at least the character was still the fucking character.
Wait, I heard Sam R. didn't even watch WandaVision. Don't know if it's true. What? Oh, you heard Sam didn't watch
Sam
WandaVision.
Raimi didn't watch.
Oh, I heard that too.
Did pretty good if that's true. Like he held on to it pretty well, but
he didn't need to. It didn't have that much reference to it. But yeah, it's possible.
I feel like if this is the course that we can see for future Marvel films, I'm out. I'm done. Like
I feel like
I'm off the train.
I feel like that's not going to be the case. I feel like this weekend,
I
Kevin
hope
Feige's going to come out and be like, Phase 4 was the filler phase. Phase 4 was the phase where I stepped back a bit. I brought some big name directors in. I let them do their thing. Phase 5 is when we get back to it, because there weren't big directors in the first phase, first three phases. The Russo brothers were great, but they weren't big when they came on. They were
made big by this.
They were made big. They hired directors that would fall in line with the vision. Phase 4, I feel like it's gonna be the excuse is, hey, we wanted to step back for a bit after 3 phases of over the shoulder. We wanted to give some big names a chance to do something. Phase 5 is when we reel it back in, and I could see that being the justification for this. Whether or not that's deserving, I could see that's what they say. We'll see at Comic-Con and D23. Yes. I think there's some big things that are going to happen this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con.
And honestly, I was already not watching Miss Marvel. Like, I'm going to binge it this week, but I'm really hoping that Miss Marvel puts me back into a Marvel mood, because like that hurt. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that it involves Captain Marvel, and she's not a favorite for me right now in the cinematic universe, which is also unfortunate.
I don't want to spoil anything for you, and I don't want to influence how you feel about that show, but Alan and I agreed it was great. And I really
for that.
Really did like it. And I'll tell you right now, I liked it so much more than this movie. I appreciated the simplicity of it, and I did like it.
I'm still looking forward to She-Hulk. I like Tatiana Maslany is an awesome actress, and it would be really interesting to see what they do there. Even the Echo show that they were talking about, I feel like there's some really interesting stuff that they could do there, because also I imagine that's when they're going to bring Matt Murdock back into the fold.
They've announced it officially that Fisk and Daredevil are coming back in that film.
Yeah, I want to see Fisk better than I saw him in Hawkeye for sure.
But I misread the recent headline. The headline was Fisk and Daredevil join the Echo show, and I read it as Echo joins the Fisk and Daredevil show.
Well, good.
I don't really care about Echo right now, but
I feel like her character could be awesome. I don't have a history with her in the comics, not a thick one. I know that she and Matt Murdock do get together, but I don't remember much from that. Like, that's from like the Wikipedia articles that I've read. Like, I haven't read a comic run with her in it. So,
it is amazing to me that after Thor 4, we're talking more about, I'm looking forward to the other stuff to clear the bad taste
from my favorite character.
4. Yeah.
My favorite character in the MCU was Thor. And honestly, while I was watching this movie, before I went to this movie, I was like, they better not kill Thor, because he's got so much potential for the cosmic future that they seem to be going in the MCU. After that movie, I was like, fuck, they should have killed Thor. Like, they should have killed him off, and like they should have given Natalie Portman the reins, because her story, battling cancer while changing into Lady Thor, reversing all of her progress of battling cancer, would have been fucking rough.
As she said, it's not Lady Thor.
Not Lady Thor, but whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking Jane Foster Thor. Dr.
Jane Foster, eat my hammer. Yeah, it was a disappointing film.
We'll see about the future. I am cautiously optimistic now. I'm not optimistic at all.
I'm desperately optimistic. Desperately optimistic is a good way to put it. I need them to clear the bad taste in my mouth. Like,
get it out. I'm gonna watch Miss Marvel this week, and so I'll have my review of that one on our next show. And then let's talk. We'll definitely talk about a RoboCop watch party. That sounds like a really good time.
But let's come back. Let's come back next week, because San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, and I imagine we're gonna get a Black Panther trailer. I imagine we're gonna get some stuff. you know, if something like Thor 4 was not what Kevin Feige was focused on, I imagine Black Panther 2 with all of its obstacles is something he was focused on.
It's gonna be a tough one. That's gonna
So
be a tough one. That
I
would
can't
take that's
imagine
gonna
them
take a lot of
dropping the
creative
ball with
juice
that
to.
film.
That's
Yeah.
gonna take a lot of creativity and a lot of hard work in order
And a
to
lot of
get
heart.
that one back from the setback that it reached into. So
Yeah.
Nerfherders, what did you guys think of Thor 4? Hit us up in the comments below. Let us know. Hit us up on social media. You can find us at Nerfherders Assemble on pretty much everyone. We are Nerfherders Crew on Twitter. We're not active on Twitter. I need to work on that. I am sorry. But yeah, here on YouTube is where we'll honestly be the most active. That's where you can find us. Hit the like button if you like this video. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. And until next time, I'm Seth. That's Josh. Thank you guys for watching. Good night, Jeffrey Miller. Take it easy.